Minister, the estimated potential of our oil and gas reserves should be outlined and examined further. 420 billion is estimated to be have discovered recently under the Irish Sea, but obviously there's a huge lack of exploration of late. The Minister mentioned in his speech that of the 158 exploration areas and wells that have been drilled offshore, 2/3 were done in the 1970s and 1980s, so there's been very little attention paid by Irish governments to this whole potential sector. Previous deputies have outlined Fianna Fáil's handing over of our reserves. I wasn't surprised to hear Deputy O'Queeve welcoming this. It just shows how minimal that it is, because in the past Fianna Fáil ensured that the wealth that could be derived by the Irish people from this would not be. First of all by Haughey, who did a deal with the multinational companies, then by Ray Burke, and then by Bertie Ahern as well, leaving us with scandals like Rossport, whereby we have the state and the Gardaí putting in huge amounts of money to protect a private company which is profiting from our natural resources. So today, what are we seeing from Minister Rabbitte? We're seeing a continued reliance exclusively on a tax on profits as a means of getting any money whatsoever from our natural resources. Now, we've all seen how creative multinationals are with their accountancy practices. So in effect, we may get nothing from the corporation tax rate that the Minister is talking about. Apple is one company we've seen has paid no tax whatsoever on its profits in Ireland. Starbucks has paid $35,000 since 2007. We may well see absolutely the same from these oil companies. The oil companies are being given full control over the vast majority of the profits that will be made from exploration. And I suppose the key point is that the state itself is opting to take no share in the production process, no control over what happens to our oil and gas, whether it's landed here or whether it's supplied to the Irish market. There's no comment from the Minister in his speech, unless I missed it, about a national oil company and the potential to set one up. It is mentioned in the report on page 15. The government hasn't even referred to the idea of production sharing, for example, where royalties would be held by the government as an option. It's not dealt with in the Minister's speech. I think it's very feasible that Ireland should set up a state company to explore our natural resources, just in the same way as electricity was supplied to this nation by a public company in the 1930s. Yeah, sorry, you weren't even here for what I said before, so you might let me finish. There's a neoliberal mantra, which you seem to have adopted as well, which just dismisses out of hand any state interest in such endeavours. It's mentioned in the report about Newfoundland and Labrador and other countries where this has been done. The state could develop expertise in this area if it put the work in. Obviously, it would take a certain amount of time. But in my view, a national oil and exploration company owned and controlled by the government, by the public, is the only way to guarantee that the resources are used and benefited from in the common good, where energy prices could be kept low, which we know is a huge issue for old people, for working class people who are suffering under the cost of austerity, and where the least environmentally damaging practices could be explored in a democratic way. Fracking has been mentioned, and I think it should be rejected out of hand. It's a short-term gain for the companies involved, with huge lasting damage to our environment, to our reputation for being a clean, food-producing nation, and will destroy rural areas in nobody's interest but the companies who are in place. So, Minister, I think this is very disappointing. We can all see the potential of companies to write off corporation tax in the same way they do in other areas. And it's very disappointing that the state has opted once again to take no interest or control on the production itself of this sector.